Anfernee Hardaway was remembered as the star only by those fans who saw the NBA of the 90s. Although his magic and health didn't last long, he still left an unforgettable mark on history. Shaq called the former partner a mixture of Wade, James and Kobe with their key skills. From previous videos on the channel, you may remember that some of the league stars chose the #1 jersey in Orlando precisely because of Penny. For example, T-Mac and Gilbert Arenas. It is ironic that they, in general, repeated his fate and also finished early enough due to injuries. Hello, you are on the channel Chronicle of Hoops, and today we will remember the career of one of the most talented players of the 90s, Penny Hardaway. Anfernee Hardaway was born in Memphis on July 18, 1971. When he was only 3 years old, Mother Faye moved to California. She left her son to her grandmother Louise, who was an elementary school cook. An elderly woman had to work hard to provide for her grandson an abundance. In addition, they lived in an area divided by gangs, and Louise did everything possible to prevent Hardaway from becoming a criminal. They went to church together for many years, and it was she who insisted on doing sports that would distract the boy from the dangerous streets. But to be honest, she did not expect that this would develop into something significant. According to her, she assumed that Anfernee, becoming an adult, would still do something else and earn a living like everyone else. And football, which he first became interested in, she considered too dangerous, so he switched to basketball. In general, he was the best version of Mama's boy, a granny's boy. There is even a legend that the very nickname Penny appeared thanks to Louise. Allegedly, she called him pretty with drawling southern accent, which sounded like penny, although there is a version about a coin. As a teenager, Penny already stood out on the court from his peers and also judged youth sports competitions YMCA. Penny attended Treadwell High School. When the boy was 14 years old, Faye returned to Memphis and he began to live with his mother. But she, unlike the strict Louise, did not pay such attention to her son's schoolwork. Yes, on the one hand, Penny was able to devote almost all his time to the game, but on the other hand, he completely dropped his studies. As a result, Hardaway was Player of the Year in his senior year, with 36.6 points, 10 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 3.9 steals, and 2.8 blocks per game, but failed to pass the exam. And, under NCAA rules, he had to miss a whole year. But the black stripe didn't end there. One day, in the summer of 1991, while Anfernee and a friend were loitering around in their bad neighborhood, a car stopped next to them, from which 4 gangsters jumped out. They put the guys on the ground, and while one held the guys in a gunpoint, the others took not only the money, but everything that seemed more or less valuable to them, right down to the shoes. When the robbers headed back to the car, the guys jumped up from the asphalt and ran. Several shots followed, and one of the bullets ricocheted off the pavement and lodged at Penny's right leg. Fortunately, it didn't hurt any nerves and tendons, and the doctors performed the surgery very professionally. It quickly became clear that there was no threat to a further sports career. But while Hardaway was in the hospital, he had time to think about many things. I realized, if the bullet didn't hit like it did, I could die or remain paralyzed for life. I learned how fragile it is, this life, and how close I was to losing everything overnight. I realized, you will not live forever, and you will not play basketball forever either. The first thing Penny did after leaving the hospital was to improve his grades, get on the University of Memphis team, and start tearing apart the Greater Midwest. And a year later, in the summer of '92, he was selected to the youth team with Chris Webber, Grant Hill and Allen Houston. By the way, that team is the only one in the world that beat the legendary Dream Team. On June 24, 1992, the Dream Team played in the first practice game against the junior team, which was essentially the NCAA All-Star team, and lost 54-62. Coach Chuck Daly, according to his assistant Mike Krzyzewski, solved the game by deliberately limiting Jordan's playing time and making unequal substitutions during the game, so that the superstars lost and realized that the team was not invincible a priori. The players understood what Daly wanted to convey to them. The next day, in the rematch, they went through as an asphalt roller on their young rivals. In his sophomore year, Anfernee averaged 22.8 points, 8.5 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 2.4 steals, and 1.2 blocks per game, and was named to the All-National Students team. And when in 1993 he decided to run for the NBA draft, Memphis State University retired the number 25 by hanging Hardaway's jersey under the walls of the arena. According to one rookie scout named Larry Bird, Anfernee Hardaway was the best fit player in the 1993 draft. He compared him to Magic Johnson due to his in-game intelligence and versatility, or because after the end of his career Magic Johnson seemed to him everywhere. Although, perhaps, the comparison is really quite correct. But as you may remember from the last video on my channel, another young man was chosen as the first number. With as many as 41 wins in the 92-93 season, the young club from Orlando won the draft lottery, having the lowest chance of winning, 1.5%. It turned out that the same club chose the first 2 years in a row. Before that, they chose Shaquille. He became the Rookie of the Year, and, as you also already know, this choice turned out to be life-changing for Penny. The Magic had a grand plan to bring Shaq and Chris Webber together, creating a dream front court for years to come. But Shaquille had other plans. He became friends with the Penny in the summer of '92, when they starred in the movie Blue Chips with Nick Nolte. O'Neal approached to GM John Gabriel and whispered softly, "Look, I understand you want Webber, but this kid in Penny Hardaway could be the answer to many questions. I know him from filming Blue Chips, and if you take him, we can be the new Kareem and Magic." The Magic went to meet their rookie leader and invited Penny to work out the day before the draft. The bosses of the club literally fell in love with the 201-centimeter guard and, pardon the tautology, the makings of Magic. Anfernee himself also, most of all, wanted to be in Orlando, because it's not very far from his native Memphis, there is a young team and Shaquille. Imagine Hardaway's surprise and horror when Webber's name was the first mentioned in the draft. The fans who gathered in the arena in Orlando to watch the broadcast of the draft were delighted. They dreamed of just such a pair of young big ones that would trample the league. But the surprises didn't end there. Second pick Philadelphia, blinded by the number 229, settled on Shawn Bradley. The Warriors have the third pick. Penny does not want to go to Oakland, prays to all the god, and of course go there for 15 minutes, after which the deal of decade is announced. The first number of the draft, Webber, was exchanged for Hardaway and 3 first-round picks, 2 of which, by the way, will be sold to Washington and then returned to the Warriors as a compensation for Chris Webber, and under one of them, Vince Carter will be chosen, who will also be immediately exchanged. Anfernee was excited, but the fans were furious. Upon hearing the news of Chris' trade, they responded by booing loudly at Penny, who was accused of robbing them of their dream. Annoyed by such greetings of fans from his practically hometown, Hardaway quickly made them respect him and even fall in love, but it didn't go unnoticed. This trade ended up turning the history of Orlando. A pair of Shaquille and Anfernee really became magical. A bright center and no less bright 2-meter guard. He had started the season as a shooting guard, but by the middle of it, he had shifted to the point guard position. With 16 points, 6.6 assists, 5.4 rebounds, and 2.3 steals per game, Penny Hardaway led the Magic to 50 wins and their first playoff. As the only rookie to play in every game of the season, he was named to the rookie first team and also became the rookie game MVP. In the autumn, before the start of the next season, Horace Grant, a 3-time NBA champion at that time, joined the squad. Thanks to this, in 1994-1995 season, the Magic reached a new level and won 57 games, setting a new club record. Penny also made significant progress and was invited to the Senior All-Star game for the first time. Moreover, according to the results of the regular season, he got into All-NBA first team and helped the team reach the grand final, where the Magic lost to the champions from Houston, led by Hakeem. But it's hard to blame this defeat on a sophomore who averaged 24.5 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 8 assists per game in the final series, with 50% from the field. And was it worth demanding more from a young team? which unexpectedly for everyone turned it into a contender in just 2 years. Penny's popularity in those years grew by leaps and bounds. The spectacular game, which brought results, was reinforced by advertising Nike, with whom Hardaway signed a 5-year contract for $8 million. For a series of commercials, a doll named Lil Penny was even created, voiced by Chris Rock. It was a copy, or, according to some statements, the younger brother of a basketball player, and lived a stereotypical life of a professional athlete. Parties, women, and shameless self-promotion. Lil Penny even published his own book, Knee High and Living Large, The World According to Me. This doll, by the way, even appeared instead on Anfernee in a commercial dedicated to the 75th anniversary of the NBA. In the 1995-96 season, despite the fact that Shaq missed a third of the matches due to injuries, the Magic again gave the best result in their history, 16 wins. Anfernee took on the burden of team leader, was selected to start for the All-Star game, and was named to the All-NBA All-Star team for the second time in a row. This achievement in itself deserves respect, given that this was only Penny's third season in the association. But if you look at who he pushed out, Stockton, Payton, Drexler, Miller, Richmond, my respect. More and more often the opinion began to sound that not today but tomorrow, Hardaway would remove Michael himself from the top. Michael Jordan has always been ironic about young players being forced into the titles of successors to his heir, but the case of Hardaway stood out from the crowd. Michael had a more personal way of addressing Penny, whom he condescendingly referred to as the kid. Yes, on the court, Jordan scolded, teased, taunted, and provoked Penny, but didn't overstep the bounds, as often happened with others. It was not all about favoritism, Hardaway himself is sure. Michael, in principle, couldn't have favorites. This man is living embodiment of competition. As for me, I was a guy from the Outback, for whom the NBA was new. I was full of desire to learn, and I think Michael liked it. In addition, I heard from some people that he was impressed by my game, the way I moved, and what decisions I made. He liked the style of the game, but I doubt that he somehow particularly singled me out. But here's a little historical fact for you. During his playing career, Michael Jordan only once wore the signature shoes of another basketball player in official matches. And that basketball player was Anfernee Hardaway. The fact that Jordan somehow noted Penny's talent and mentality for itself could be judged even before they met on the floor. To do this, you just need to pay attention to the shoes of Hardaway in his debut season in 1993-1994. Let me remind you that Jordan was then on a basketball vacation, so the appearance of a newcomer in the Air Jordan 9 with his signature logo caused a state of slight misunderstanding among the public. Today, the presence of so-called player edition exclusive versions for players is a common thing, but it was impossible to even dream of such a thing before 1997. It was then that Nike officially launched the Jordan brand, and Michael personally selected 5 players for whom the Jordans were designed according to their wishes. And now imagine, almost 5 years before, a rookie wearing Air Jordan 9, decorated in the colors of the Orlando Magic, entered the court. It is clear that without the consent of Michael, this couldn't happen. Orlando's spectacular performance and the duo of young Shaq and Penny quickly made the team and its stars attractive for marketing. The very next year, after joining the league, Penny became the face of Nike Air Flight 1, a model that, although without his name, was designed specifically for him. Therefore, it is considered to be a personalized one, exactly to the same extent as the legendary Nike Air Foamposite 1, the one in the name of which denoted Hardaway's game number. If you are confused by the lack of surnames or initials in the name of the models, Nike Air Max Penny came out in 1995. And then the famous fax saw the light, in which there was only one phrase, "I'm coming back." And on this occasion, new game sneakers for Michael were being prepared for release, Air Jordan Concords, the presentation of which fell on the playoff 95, in which Chicago played just with Orlando in the second round. but the light colors of the Concords didn't match the Bulls' away colors, and, as strange as it sounds now, the NBA began to fine Michael for this. And Jordan was paying. While waiting for the designers to complete work on the red and black version, he could pay more, but decided to once again show his unpredictable and self-willed disposition. For Game 3 against Orlando in Chicago, he was wearing Nike Air Flight 1, which had the Hardaway logo ripped off. The reaction of the public, as well as for Penny himself, was completely the same. It was very strange. Legends began to spread at the speed of light. For example, Michael didn't have time to bring sneakers, and he borrowed a spare pair from Penny. He ripped off Hardaway's logo to humiliate him and all of Orlando, and many more secret meanings that Michael supposedly put into this gesture. Not the last role was played by the fact that it was the third match that became the most productive for Michael in that lost playoff series, 40 points. The most prosaic version of why this happened was given by Hardaway himself. Why? Because he is Michael Jordan. Because he could just call Nike and ask them to give him a pair of sneakers. I just want to think that he made a choice in favor of my model is not accidental, because that would mean for me an incredible level of respect from a person like Michael. Fueled by this story, the headline Jordan vs. Hardaway continued to gain momentum well into 1996. More and more often in the press one could see sketches on the topic of its confrontation, in which Jordan was shown not in the most favorable angle for himself. Yes, and with flashy headlines like "Changing of the guard, Penny Hardaway takes over." Can you imagine how Michael reacted to this? If in the regular season it was still possible to discuss this topic, when Penny took third place in the voting for MVP of the season, losing only to Jordan and Admiral, then in the playoffs Michael once again showed everyone who is who. A clear answer to this question came from the 96 East Final, in which the Magic faced the Bulls, who had won 72 that season. And they ran into the evil Michael, who returned to his best condition and his retinue, hunger for revenge for the last season. In the first game, Shaq scored 27 points, Hardaway 38, and everyone else only 18. Not surprisingly, the future champions won it with a score 121-83. Of course, there were no further such failures, but the Bulls never gave the Magic a single match. Jordan didn't even have to put in extra effort, and only in the fourth he decided to personally put an end to the beating, gaining 45 points. It was the end of an era for Orlando. During the off-season, the team turned into an average team, even faster than it became a contender. Everyone understood that the fairy tale ended when O'Neal moved his talents to Los Angeles. It was a hard strike to the team, as Anfernee recalls. It was a very sad moment. We had a special connection with him. I thought Shaq and I would play together for the rest of our careers. I had no idea that he was thinking of moving somewhere. It was terrible when he left. After that, everything went downhill. But there is also a version that Shaq actually wanted to stay in Orlando, but this didn't happen precisely through the fault of Hardaway. Shaq is said to have heard rumors that Penny wants to be the highest paid Magic player. Moreover, he allegedly went to the authorities and said there, "This is my team," and Shaq couldn't believe it. I have never heard anything more idiotic in my life. I have always known Penny as a gentle person. He made a big mistake if he didn't want to play on the same team as me. It's bad when you have two alpha males in the team, and mutual understanding between them is lost. Then everything goes upside down. It happened to me and Penny. Back then, the big man had no idea what kind of alpha male he would have to deal with next. As a result, he asked the Magic for 150 million, knowing that they could give him no more than 80 for 4 years. And a few days later, he agreed to the offer of Jerry West, 121 million. But this is Shaquille's version of those events only. When the press conference was held to announce the signing of the contract, Penny was very angry. I didn't care. Penny wanted to be the highest paid Magic player. Good luck with that, bro. Hardaway himself never spoke much about those events, either because it's the pure truth or because it is simply not the kind of person to stir up all this. Only he knows. That summer they played together for the last time as a part of Dream Team 2 and won the gold medal at the Atlanta Olympics. After that, Penny had to prove that Orlando knowingly decided to build their future around him as a leader. But in the very first such season, serious problems with the left hamstring began and didn't stop anymore. Due to the first of these injuries, he missed 23 games in that regular season. The team, left without both leaders, began to fall apart, which led to the drain of coach Brian Hill by the players, and Anfernee is considered to be initiator of this. The fans again took up arms against him because they could not forgive the fact that they did this to the coach, with whom all the few successes of the team were associated. But Nick Anderson later told how it really happened. All 16 guys were in the room, and every single one, without exception, voted for the resignation of the coach, not just Penny Hardaway, but all the dirt poured on him because he was the captain, and it was totally undeserved. Despite this, the players still had enough votes from the fans to again get into the starting five at the All-Star. And at the end of the 1996-97 season, Anfernee, who scored 20.5 points, 5.6 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and 1.6 steals per game, got into the third symbolic team of the league. Orlando, in turn, made it to the playoffs, where they met with the Miami Heat. They totally lost their first two away games. Moreover, if the whole team screwed up in the first, then in second, Hardaway began to show signs of life and scored 26 points. And from the third game, Penny finally turned on his wizard mode. In that game, the Magic scored only 88 points, but that was enough to win. On Penny's, there were 42 of them, despite the fact that the rest of the start five scrapped together in terrible agony only 6. It's good that Darrell Armstrong helped from the bench. In Game 4, Anfernee played all 48 minutes and scored 41 points out of 99 team points. Washawn Leonard, Kate Eskins, Jamal Mashburn and Dan Merle tried to hold him back, in turn and in double team. The result was 0. Heat were shocked. After the match, their leaders Morning and Tim Hardaway refused to talk to reporters, and Alonzo also throws in a few swear words for the especially annoying ones. "We know that Penny will have the most possession," PJ Brown said, "but we don't know how to stop him. He just kills us. It's unbearable." It seemed that Hardaway took his game to a new, sky-high level. Orlando players themselves admitted that it was he who moved the team forward, and they just sat on his back. But even in this form, Penny couldn't pull them out. Decisive, the fifth game, the Magic lost, and he played well again. He scored 33 points, collected 10 rebounds, distributed 6 assists, but his partners were unable to provide their captain with any help. In that 1997 playoff run, he averaged 31 points, 6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 2.4 steals, and 1.4 blocks per game, losing only to Michael in scoring. But that episode with the Heat was Hardaway's swan song, because their world never saw the former, real Penny, again. An injury to his left knee early in the 1997-98 season required surgery and forced the Magic leader to miss most of the season. He tried to return earlier than the doctors recommended, but again went on forced leave. As a result, after 4 All-Star games in the first 5 years of his career, he never showed up there again. In 1999, Penny still managed to play in all 50 games of the lockout season and averaged 15.8 points, 5.7 rebounds and 5.3 assists, and 111 steals allowed him to take 5th place in the league in this indicator. But Orlando, having home court advantage, lost in the first round to Philadelphia. Before the start of 2000 season, Anfernee was traded to Phoenix Suns, where Danny Ainge was general manager. He staged a noisy PR campaign around the Kid Hardaway pair, naming it Backcourt 2000, but due to injuries to Penny's leg and Jason's ankle, they only played 45 games together. In 60 games that season, Penny averaged 16.9 points, 5.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists and 1.6 steals. The Suns finished 53-29 and finished 5th in the Western Conference. Kidd missed most of the first-round series against the defending champion San Antonio Spurs, but Hardaway managed the burden of the lead. In the third decisive game, he made a triple-double with 17 points, 13 assists and 12 rebounds. And in the second round, he was waiting for a meeting with a former teammate, Shaquille O'Neal and his Lakers. Phoenix can't handle the future champion, losing the series 1-4. And from that moment, Anfernee begins the transformation from superstar to an average player prone to injury. In the 2001 season, he went through 2 more surgeries on his left knee and played only 4 games. By the next season, before which Kidd was traded to Jersey for Stephen Marbury, Hardaway came up healthy and even played 80 matches. But as the season progressed, Phoenix traded a young Joe Johnson from Boston, and Penny, for the first time in his career, tried out the role of a player from the bench. In 2003 season, Joe Johnson's unstable play forced coach Frank Jackson to bring the veteran Hardaway back to the start. He played an important role as the season progressed, surrounded by young stars such as Marbury, Stoudemire and Marion, but missed 24 games with a hand injury. The following season, Suns fans saw Anfernee for the last time in their team's starting lineup, and on January 6th, he and Marbury were traded to New York. They also jumped into the playoffs that season, lost to Jason Kidd and the Nets, after which both the Knicks and Penny's career slowly but surely went to the very bottom. The following years were again marred by Penny's injuries. In 2006, he tried to return but couldn't play either in Orlando or in the Heat, where he was reunited with Shaquille for 16 matches. But in those, he scored only 4 points per game, and even an excellent defensive game didn't save him from a redeemed contract. And so ended the career of another great basketball player who could not reveal his full potential due to serious injuries. After that, Hardaway returned to his native Memphis, where he began working with boys from disadvantaged areas, becoming the coach of his school's basketball team. With him, the team became one of the best in the state, and as a result, in 5 years, Coach Anfernee brought 5 titles to 2 schools in his native Memphis. After that, he heads the University of Memphis, and so far is remembered only by the scandal associated with James Wiseman. In November 2019, the NCAA suspended freshman Wiseman, who was then considered a potential first pick in the 2020 NBA draft. The fact is that in 2018, Anfernee Hardaway, already being the head of coach of Memphis Tigers, helped the Wiseman family move to Memphis. The NCAA decided that this was the reason James chose this particular university, and such things are strictly monitored there. Not so long ago, in 2012, at halftime of the All-Star game in Orlando, O'Neal, Hardaway and Dennis Scott got together for an interview about the team of the 90s in which they performed. Naturally, the question was raised which of the teams, Orlando 95 or Orlando 2009, was better. And it is also natural that the whole trinity anonymously answered Orlando 95. But another moment is shown. They agreed that the 90s team was the strongest due to the presence of Penny. And Scott said the key idea. People have forgotten how good Penny was. It only happened because he played in the 90s. We didn't have YouTube then, and we didn't have Twitter. When I showed my youngest son some of his games, he asked me, Penny Hardaway? Was he playing so well? As Brian Hill said, he did things on the court that he was just going to convey to the team, taking a timeout, but Penny felt the situation very subtly and was ahead of him. It was amazing. To tell the truth, I think we would have swept away the squad, and it's all because of Penny. You can speculate how Shaquille and Howard would fight, and who would shoot more 3-pointers, me or the 2000 Orlando shooters, but there are no arguments against Penny. Neither Redick nor Jason Richardson nor Jameer Nelson would have an answer to the question how to stop a 2-meter point guard who can do what Penny could do. What was Penny's magic? Maybe it's a matter of versatility? Yes, Hardaway was a very versatile player and really knew how to do a lot. But for example, to go out and play as center is if necessary. Magic did with success. Of course, could not Johnson is both taller and much more powerful. To say that he had that sixth sense, which in team sports is called eyes in the back of his head, like Nash, Kidd or the same Magic, is also unlikely. At least not at the Trinity level. Then maybe he was a good in defense? Yes, also not to say that. No, Anfernee, although he was not a genius in this component, was not bad at all, and those little sins that were largely compensated by his ability to work. He always worked out in defense to the end and didn't shy away from the team defense, which the ordinary spectator simply doesn't notice. And even though he was not included in the defensive team at the end of the season, he was among the leaders of the league in interception per game 3 times. In general, he defended at the level. He wasn't even the one who played for mind-blowing stats. In what could be called his best years, he scored more than 20 points, had just over 7 assists and 4+ rebounds. Not that impressive, right? So what's the point then? Why was he so great? another thing, and this is just one of many cases confirming that statistic, both in life in general and in sports in particular, are often simply false, and one cannot completely rely on it. And this is another thing, artistry. Anfernee was an artist with a capital letter. For a lot of young basketball fans, the main spokesman and bearer of such things as grace, style, elegance, and so on is Bryant. But for older viewers, Hardaway was superior to Bryant in all of this. This is what Penny's game had such a serious impact on arenas Joe Johnson, McGrady, James, and by the way, the same Bryant. All of them said more than once that in their youth they just idolized Hardaway. The unique thing about Penny manifested itself in many ways. Anthropometry allowed him to gain an advantage over almost all league point guards. At the same time, having prohibitive speed, he was too fast for many shooting guards, elegant, and, as it seemed, unstoppable. Add to this the gift of an improviser, thanks to which Penny could create something that no one expected at any second. But at the same time, it was subtly thought out and calculated. And Penny was such a player when he was preparing only for the third season in adult basketball.